Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Behind the Studs. Hey Jim,
Hey, buddy.
how are you?
Oh, I'm much better now after falling asleep at the wheel at the traffic
It's-
light before I got
that's
here.
So disturbing. So disturbing.
I don't know if it was seconds, minutes. I know it wasn't an hour, that's for sure. I wouldn't be here then.
I told you if I was behind you, it would
Yeah,
be
you would have
2 seconds.
Yeah, probably give me a little tap in the ass.
Get out of my way.
Yep.
Old man falling asleep.
That's it. Oh, man. Nothing but knuckles.
Nothing but knuckles.
Oh, my God.
Well, I'm glad you woke up and drove here safely.
Oh, I had to get here because we have an exciting show today, ladies and gentlemen,
who
boys
do we
and
have
girls.
today? Who do we have?
We have the man, the myth, and he's a legend.
He is
Not
a legend.
myth, he's a legend.
All right.
Nigel Mcfarland. We've had him on the show years ago.
We did.
Yeah, when they first started doing podcasts, he was on the show.
Nigel, how is it that we look older since the last time we had you on the show, but you don't?
Jesus, that's right.
Right?
Because he enjoys island time. You know,
I
does
got it.
island time.
Nigel, thanks for coming back on the show. We
Thanks, buddy.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
No problem.
All right.
Pleasure to be here, guys.
So yeah, let's tell everybody what, or we can let Nigel tell us what he does.
Yeah, well, I'll start it, and then he's gonna let him jump
right.
in. So just to let you fill you people in that I've known Nigel now for almost 5 or 6 years, I would say. No, what am I saying? Longer than that.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, no kidding.
And we kept in touch, and as we know, we had him on the show.
Yep.
I was in the process of getting solar power.
Yep.
So we got solar power. We talked about this, that, the other thing.
Mhm.
And now we've reached a new age of solar power. A lot of people out there are seeing more ads of it. We're seeing so-called rebates. There's a huge push now to get more solar. And there's a lot of things that are going on with it. And it's very, very interesting. The reason why I have Nigel on the show, because if I may say, Nigel is not a kind of guy who blows any kind of smoke.
Right.
He's a fact check guy, which I love about him.
Mhm.
Anything he says, you can research. It's all backed up. And I wanted him on the show to give a true insight to the homeowners about solar power, because a lot of them, as Nigel and I have talked about it before, are swayed or persuaded falsely on some of the advertisements that's going on.
Sure.
And what we also want to talk about is the future of solar power, where it's going, where we are, and what's coming around the corner.
Right.
So I thought it was very important that he was on the show today. And
I
I'm
agree.
glad he could do it. So thanks, buddy, for making the show up, making it here, and let's talk, bud. So, let's fill the audience in about you and what you're doing, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, no problem. So, still doing the same thing. As I mentioned before, excuse me. I work with quite a few different suppliers because I've never found, one company in a position to solve the variety of problems that people have or the challenges that they have. I figured out pretty early on that it's best to kind of network with different suppliers so that I could actually customize solutions to meet the needs of customers. So I've been working more with Sonova over the past, I'd say past 2 years. I still do some amount of SunPower and a few other smaller suppliers, but I'd say primarily Sonova. The main reason I've been doing more Sonova is that as far as the quality of the panels are concerned, well, the efficiency issue across, all these brands that you hear about is really negligible in terms of efficiency. I mean, SunPower stands out. There may be, a few percentage points higher than the others in terms of efficiency, but if you get a lot of sun, then you might not want to go for like a premium brand, as long as you're getting the performance, right?
Right.
So yeah, back to Sonova. So one of the main things I like with Sonova is that I remember when I started off, I worked for this really crazy company when we started off. I mean, I won't even go into the stories, but one story stuck out. It's they always wanted us to push leases, and I don't know if it's because back then, this is maybe 4 or 5 years ago, they weren't very familiar with how to sell, the loan option. So everyone was trained on leases, and I had quite a few people who were interested in loans. a while after maybe 6 months, 8 months into it, we started doing loans. But the main reason was because there's a lot of pushback. When you're thinking about financing a system, obviously you're going to have a debt on your credit. And if you're doing a lease, well, then no, you don't really have a debt on your credit because you don't own anything. So unless you default and you've got, a debt to clear up, then you really don't have, say, a balance on your credit saying, you owe this company a certain amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
So Sonova has a very nice financing option where when you finance the system through them, there is really no footprint on your DTI or your debt to income. So if you wanted to finance a system up to $150,000, there's absolutely no debt to income, on your credit. And that's a pretty cool thing because you don't hear about stuff like that. And you're talking about financing a solar system at like 0.99% APR with good credit. So that's one of the main things. Also, the low interest rate, the 0.99%, that's definitely a good deal. And as far as the equipment is concerned, it comes down to the installers, right? Because Sonova is primarily a finance company. And so they work with different installers in different areas. I work primarily through Elite out in North Haven and also with Brilliant Solar. These are two pretty solid companies. They have really tight operations and they're using tier 1 panels, right? So we've been mostly, installing Hanwha's.
A what? I'm sorry, I didn't get that. What?
Hanwha. I believe it's a Korean brand panel.
Okay.
It's a tier 1 panel, pretty good efficiency, pretty good warranties. And also they have a 25-year comprehensive warranty, not just manufacturing, but also for labor for 25 years. And that's also not something that's very common. Typically, you're getting 10 years on labor and 25 years manufacturer's warranty. I prefer to know that, 10, 15 years down the line, if something goes wrong, I don't need to climb the roof to try to replace a panel because it's covered under the warranty that I'm paying for.
So basically, when you buy a system, you almost, some of these systems have a full warranty for the 20 or 25 years that you own it. Is that what you're saying?
Right. So typically, you're going to see everyone is selling solar. They're going to come to you with a 25-year warranty on their proposal. A lot of people don't dig in to find out what exactly is covered under this warranty.
Right.
So between Sonova and SunPower, their warranties are comprehensive. These are, billion-dollar companies. They have the resources and they've already put aside money to cover these warranties over the years. And that's important. So with a comprehensive warranty, essentially, like I said, it's not just a manufacturer's warranty. It covers labor. So 20 years down the line, something goes wrong, you essentially have coverage for, taking care of those repairs, replacing panels. The inverters are actually, they're dead in like 12 years, and that's already tied into the warranty. That's something that's not explained to homeowners sometimes when they're buying from, Joe Solar or whatever it is, these other smaller companies that are out there knocking on doors. So the inverter is going to be dead in like 10, 12 years. In your Sonova deal, you're essentially going to get that inverter replaced. So that's already covered in there. You don't need to come out of pocket for an inverter.
Okay.
And of course, the panels and all these other components that are part of the system, they're all covered under that warranty.
Yeah.
And then there's also the linear warranty, which essentially is the performance warranty, stating that the system will perform at a certain level with, obviously the degradation over time. It's electronic equipment, so those things break down gradually over time. But all that's factored into that warranty, which is also very important, because if something just goes out and starts underperforming over a short space of time, a couple of years, 5, 6 years, you're having problems, you want to know that this is not something I need to pay for. So that's the reason why I've been focusing more on Sonova over the past 2 years or so. It's a cheaper alternative to SunPower. Of course, SunPower is a premium brand. If someone's more interested in a premium brand, then of course we can deliver a SunPower system. But for the average guy trying to get a decent solar system and he's expecting that system is going to be performing for the next 35 years or so, then you're going to save some money with a Sonova deal.
I think one of the questions that customers should ask. Just like when you're buying a car, you want to know what that bumper to bumper warranty is. And if you don't ask it, and they say, and some people they think, oh, I got a warranty on it, so that's great, but they don't read the fine print, is what you're saying. So the warranty just may be on cables, maybe on a panel, this, that, the other thing, but it may not cover the inverters. It may not cover the essential pieces that do wear out, like you said.
Or the labor.
Or the labor, yeah. Then all of a sudden, 12 years down the road, oh, the inverter went, but I'm covered. I got a warranty. Surprise. And people need to ask questions like that. The important. So you said they maintain these panels have to maintain a certain efficiency, and they I'm sure they monitor it, Nigel, right?
Yeah, I don't know of a provider actually that doesn't monitor or offer monitoring, but typically you have an app that you'll download, or you can log into a web portal somewhere, and you can see what the system is generating over time. SunPower is a really cool one. It's actually a little bit better than the Sonova app, but the Sonova app is still pretty decent. I mean, it's going to tell you what's going on in terms of your production, and especially since you're now going to be credited. I don't know if I'd mentioned this to you before, Jimmy, but as of January, we now have a renewable energy credit for on systems that are owned, not leased or power purchase agreements. So what that means is that for 20 years, if you own a system, you're actually going to get a direct deposit into your account each quarter for a certain amount of money. And the amount of money essentially would be equal to, it's a PBI, so it's a performance-based incentive. So whatever kilowatts the system generated over that period of time, you're essentially going to be paid around 3 cents and change per kilowatt. So if you have a system that's producing 10,000 kilowatt hours per year, you're looking at around $300 per year coming back for 20 years. Mm-hmm. So I'd say you could factor that in when you're looking at your loan payments. You could essentially factor that into your savings, right? Because it is reducing your cost. Mm-hmm. So it's important to understand how your system is performing, so you can tell what to do. How much your system has generated, so you'll know. Well, this quarter I should be getting a decent check. You might be getting a larger one, obviously, during the sunnier period. And then, of course, come wintertime, it would be those deposits would be lower. So it's quarterly that those deposits are made.
So let me ask you a question. Mm-hmm. So when they do set up the panels, which we know they get the most efficiency and the most sun, so you're most efficient and you're grabbing all the kilowatts. Right. As you go on, like we said, during the seasons, you start to lose the daylight, and you're losing that. So the credits that you've accrued during the more sunnier days, do you start using up those credits that you've accrued? That's how it used to be on the lease system.
Right. Thanks for bringing that up. So let me just clarify. So that's net metering is still there. So net metering is all the excess power that you haven't consumed is essentially banked with the utility company. Right. And by the way, let me correct what I said before. The renewable energy credits are only for EverSource customers. UI customers, folks on the UI in the UI footprint, they're not getting the renewable energy credits. They have just the one-to-one net metering, which means that if you bank 1 kilowatt of power, you're entitled to use that 1 kilowatt back when you need it without having to pay for it. That is still the case with EverSource. What we're talking about when we say renewable energy credits, we're talking about the total amount of power that your system has generated over the course of a year. You're going to be credited, even though you've used it. You're still getting paid just for generating clean power.
Okay. All right.
Interesting.
That replaced the RSIP. If you remember, a couple of years ago when we spoke, was the residential investment program, where you get a couple $1,000 deposited. You get a couple $1,000 as a state rebate on the solar system. Mm-hmm. So they killed that, and now they're doing the RECs, which is the renewable energy credit.
There's still rebates out there through the state, or is it federal when you buy the system?
So it's the federal. In Connecticut, it's the federal tax credit. It's still 26% until the end of this year.
Okay. All right.
All right. So let's say I know nothing about solar, which is not a stretch. So to the person that, is all they really know is that, there's panels that get put on a roof. Why do they need this? Why do they need solar power? What's the pitch? Not necessarily, in a bad way, but like, what's the pitch to them as to why they should have solar power?
Well, I think the main thing about having solar is a matter of pretty much just shielding yourself from all the BS that's going on. I mean, the energy market is volatile as hell.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to remain that way. The price is only going to keep going up. We've got supply chain issues and gas and all that stuff. But besides that, they now have to invest a lot in hardening the grid. So that's infrastructure investment on the part of the utility companies.
Mm-hmm.
And all of us who are paying them, we're going to be paying for this. And they have to do this because, essentially to prepare for climate change. I mean, it's now, it's a real thing that's happening, regardless of, however folks want to interpret it. I mean, things are definitely changing. And we're,
Mm-hmm.
If we think about, I think one of those sites, one of those updates that I got, so they're expecting that the situation with the grid might be critical come summer, because the demand, just because of how hot it might be,
Mm-hmm.
and that demand is going to be, that's going to be putting a significant strain on the infrastructure. So we're
Mm-hmm.
looking at, potential blackouts with transformers going out and all these different issues. Now, if you think about the guy with a Tesla car and the cost of gas going up, that guy's not bothered at all. He doesn't care what's happening with
No.
Right. Yeah.
If you think about the guy with solar panels on his home, and that system was designed to generate all the power that he needed, and he got a good rate on that system, well, he's now making fixed payments for the next 25 years or whatever that term is. It doesn't matter if the utility cost, if the kilowatt rate per kilowatt keeps climbing up.
Right.
And now the folks with battery backups, well, no, they don't care if the grid goes down. Well, unless it goes down for extended periods of time, but typically right now, the average, I'd say a 10K battery, that'll run the average home for around 3 days if you're, pretty much just keeping the essentials running.
Right.
So having that kind of protection, I think that peace of mind, I think it's a pretty good deal. I mean, I don't like, I don't like the idea of being exposed to all these variables that just keep changing that are outside of my control. You know what I mean?
Understood.
So that is why I think solar is a good idea. That is why I think converting as much as you can to electric, I think, is a good idea.
Perfect. Thank you.
Well, we talked about this a while back, and I thought this was one of the vital importance was that the energy costs through electrical, if you're going with EverService or UI, it raises anywhere between 6 and 8% per year. Correct? That's where we were last time.
Yeah, we've been pretty conservative. We've been doing a 3% escalator. We've just been saying average across the country, but now they raised their supply. What is it, like 64%? If you Google it on EverService website, they tell you that they hiked it up in January.
Yeah, I mean, they guise it with the fact that you've got your usage and then you got the delivery fee, and delivery fee is like triple whatever your usage is, and I still don't quite understand how all that works. But
right. But if you look at the bill now, you'll notice that the delivery and the supply, there used to be a big gap. Now they're pretty much neck and neck.
Yeah. Oh, are they?
They blew that up.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. I think. We will return right after a quick word from our sponsor.
So, buddy, I got to tell you.
What?
I love trees, but I do not have a green thumb.
I don't either.
Right. But what I found out, since I'm ready to go, that fast-growing trees doesn't care if you have a green thumb.
No, they offer you many tools to help you make your plants and trees perfect.
Yeah, so you don't need to be an expert gardener to have a great yard.
No.
Every plant at fastgrowingtrees.com sells are raised and cared for by their team of expert growers, so all you have to do is put them in the ground.
And if you have any issues at all, they have care advice available 24/7.
Wow, so whether you're looking for that perfect plant or ready to redesign your whole landscape, fastgrowingtrees.com has the expertise to make it easy.
I absolutely love these trees. I've ordered palm tree and I've ordered plants, and they came perfectly ready to go, ready to get put right into the ground, and they're doing amazing.
And you know, fastgrowingtrees.com is the world's largest online nursery. Did you know
That's
that?
crazy.
With expertise, care, and selection, you won't find it anywhere else.
Wow.
Yeah.
So go to fastgrowingtrees.com/behindthestuds right now, and you'll get 15% off your entire order.
Wow.
Get 15% off at fastgrowingtrees.com/behindthestuds.
Get them now.
One more time, fastgrowingtrees.com/behindthestuds. Share with your family and friends.
And a big thank you to our sponsor. Now, back to the show. Well, I mean, I think that's another thing, too. We discussed this before. Like, if you look into the future and you're looking at things, energy from electrical they either have to get supplied by coal or steam, right? Coal or fuel, fossil fuel,
Nuclear.
Stuff like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or nuclear.
Yeah.
So there's such a demand for that right now. So there you go. That's part of your delivery charge, I'm sure.
Sure.
That's going on with that. And now that everything is going up and going up, I say why not go with the sun? There's one thing that we got to touch upon. I'm sorry if I'm jumping track a little bit here, which is important. A lot of these ads that I've been seeing, I see them on TikTok or I just see them in. We have a $2,500 rebate if you use our system. We'll give you $2,500 to use our solar panels to put them on your house.
Mm-hmm.
Nigel, would you please explain that? How it's kind of like that smoke and mirrors going on with that?
Right. So let me see the best way to answer that. So first of all, let me just speak from my experience. So
Okay.
if my suppliers, if SunPower and if Sonova has an offer, and they're saying, well, we're giving away a $2,000 gift card or whatever it is, then we'll just pass that right on to the customer. But for the most part, if you're talking about one of the companies that represent the installation companies, I'd say, that work for the SunPowers or the Sonovas or whatnot, there's nothing going on. They haven't put out anything. They're just trying to catch customers with something attractive. Then they might tell you, well, we'll give you $2,000 back or whatever it is. All they're really doing, for the most part, and I can't say this is the case for everyone, but what I've seen is that they're just pretty much baking that into the cost. So
Sure.
you'll get a check for $2,000, but I mean that was already put into the cost of the system, and
Still
you're
paying for
essentially
it.
paying for that.
Right.
So,
Exactly.
Okay.
so
Now,
you're
is
essentially
there-
financing a loan, right?
Right.
And it's really difficult to tell unless I mean I am very transparent with what I'm doing. So if there is a SunPower offer or Sonova or whatever it is, I'll say, hey, these guys are offering, this promotional stuff, and you're eligible for that. But other than that, if they're saying, well, I need $10,000 back for home improvement or a new roof, I'm saying, fine, we can factor that in there. You're going to pay for it. We'll put the $10,000 into the deal for you. And the good thing about doing it that way is that they do benefit from the tax credit, but they're still financing that money over time. So it's really a matter of
And it's very low financing.
it's very low financing.
0.99%.
Yeah.
It's under.
Yeah.
So
percentage.
that's a win-win.
So Nigel, is there a dollar amount that you use that somebody's paying for electric every month that you
Different.
say you definitely will benefit from this? Or if somebody comes back and says, well, I have a lot of propane, I got a propane furnace and I got all this other stuff, so I don't use as much electricity, do you say maybe it won't be beneficial, or is it beneficial for everyone?
Well, as far as it being beneficial, that starts with the efficiency of the location in the first place, right? Not
Okay.
everyone gets the same amount of solar exposure. So that's pretty much the first thing that I check for folks, is that we do an irradiance measurement to assess how much solar energy hits this location over the course of a year. Because everything solar is really calculated over the course of a year. You've got to factor in winter and summer and all these different things to come up with what that real number is. So, a lot of people are also confused by the fact that even though they have a lot of sun, they might not qualify for solar because of the design of the roof. So, and I don't want to. Let me just answer what you're saying. So the efficiency is the first thing that we want to assess, and if the numbers make sense, then the person decides. I provide the information. I just help them understand what's going on and allow them to make the decisions. I'm really not much of a sales guy. I'm more of a my approach has always been consultative. So let's look at the issue. Let's see if it makes sense. And here's the information. And then I can kind of help guide them through understanding the benefits and so on. So it's really difficult to say. Obviously, folks with higher bills, especially folks who have electric heat, well, and right now dealing with I suspect we're going to be dealing with a lot of hotter summers.
Right.
We're talking about a lot more AC, running these big things. I've seen some of them. You turn it on and the light now is just dim because of
the meter spinning outside.
Hot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I would say, if you're $100 or so, I've had people go solar with like a $70 bill. It's the peace of mind. They know that once this thing is paid off, they don't have an electric bill for, you pay this thing off in 20, 25 years. It's going to run another 10 years or so.
Yeah.
Right.
You essentially have free power for at least some period of time. So it's really on a case by case basis.
Okay. Thank you.
So after 25 years or 20 years, you bought the system, basically whatever the plan is, and when you buy solar panels and you have solar power, are you just paying off the bill with the solar panel, but are you also paying electrical also, or just the meter? You're just paying off the electrical meter? You got two bills or one bill?
Right. So that's also a good question. So, and back to some of the confusion with solar. You don't even want to shop around for solar unless you know what your average usage is. And it's very easy to determine what your average usage is, because that's how you want to make sense of the whole thing. You're going to take your electric bill, which has 13 months of usage on there on page 2, whether it's UI or EverService, it's on page 2. And you're essentially going to add up all those kilowatts to figure out how many kilowatt hours do I consume each year. And you will know if the past year was the normal year. If you went on vacation for 6 months and you were at the house, you've got to factor in that, you weren't using power as you typically would. So that's the first thing you want to figure out is, just how much power do I consume? And you can then determine, well, have I been, pretty conservative, and do I want to be more, do I want to be more comfortable, more, have more freedom and, running my AC a bit more, using these other electronics without having to worry. And then once you come up with that number, then you need to figure out, well, what's the cost for a system to offset this amount of power? So back to your question, Jimmy, if you have a system that has been designed to generate the average amount of power that you use and you don't exceed that amount of power, then you're not going to be paying the utility company for an extra power. But it is not unusual for you to end up with a $10 bill here or $20 bill, depending, just because you overused, you've used more power than the system was designed for.
Right.
So that's,
right.
Those are important things, because I've heard these nightmares of people getting solar and then, the bill is the same as the utility bill is just the same as it was, and I know I have an additional. That happened because no one really explained to them what they're getting into, and you have a slick sales guy who just sold them a system that wouldn't perform. And it's really, now it's less common, but back in, the old days, 4 years ago, I mean,
when it started, yeah.
Right. I remember they had this crazy guy they brought down from California to train us. And I remember going out with this guy and listening to him lie to these people. And I was like, the first day I went out with him, I was like, to hell with this. I'm never going. If I have to work like this, I'll go back to cable.
Right.
So what he was doing, and I won't name names, what he was doing is he was essentially telling people that the system was going to overperform to an extent. There is some truth in overproduction, right? Because, they're running off a pretty good algorithm, on the design side to figure out, how much solar energy, this area will get, over time. And if you have a really good, if you have, if you have a winter that's not bad, right, where we don't have a lot of nor'easters and so on, then you have less time where your panels are covered with snow. And if you have a really good summer where there's not so much rain, then you could end up with, maybe 10% overproduction or so on average. But in general, you want to understand how many kilowatt hours you need and how many kilowatt hours this system is going to produce.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the most important things that you need to understand. Then you can kind of make sense of the cost, right? Because you might be shopping around between a bunch of different solar companies. You definitely want to be educated in terms of how many kilowatt hours you typically use. You also want to know what kilowatt rate you've been charged by the utility company. And that's very simple. You simply divide your current cost by the current usage, and you've got your kilowatt rate.
Okay.
Okay.
That's pretty
So you can tell them,
each-
they might come to you and tell you that your rate is 26 cents per kilowatt, and you have no idea because you've never done the math. And then they'll tell you, well, I'm going to sell you a power purchase agreement at 20 cents per kilowatt. That sounds good.
Yeah.
You say yes because you have no idea. So that's the unfortunate problem that some folks run into.
All right.
So different panels by different companies can produce different kilowatt hours?
Correct. So you have manufacturers, and they have a variety of different models of panels, 300 watts, 350, 360, 400, all these different things. And it really gets complicated trying to have a customer try to figure out if they should get a 400 watt versus a 350 or whatever it is. That might be a little bit complicated because the math isn't simple trying to figure out on your own what that production is going to be. You absolutely need a professional assessment done, which is what we do for free all day long at One Source Energy. But you wanna have a very good idea, because if you have, like I said, if you have a lot of sun, then you really don't need the most efficient panels because you have a lot of sun. So if you look at the cost of, say, a 350 versus a 400, and you're looking at an extra $5,000 or so, then you might want to decide, well, I really don't need that. I have enough roof space and I get enough sun. Let me save the $5,000 and get the 350s.
Mm-hmm.
But you'll have customers who are like, no, I want the most powerful panel. And you're trying to explain to them,
Yeah,
you don't need it, but yeah, we'll do it. I mean, extra $5,000 there, but
and if there is overage, is that something that the utility companies are paying for? Is it a buyback? Is that still going on, or?
Right. So it's a little bit more restrictive now. You can't really oversize the system substantially. I mean, I think we're allowed 105% or something like that on the previous bill, but we can make allowances for folks who might be getting an EV in the future.
Okay.
So they might give us an allowance of an extra 3,500 kilowatts or so, which I think is what they're saying is the average usage for an EV.
EV.
But yeah, typically electronic vehicles, so Teslas and all those.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Okay. My bad. So that's pretty much it. You can't really oversize the system as much as before.
Okay.
But whatever it is, every single kilowatt that your system generates, and that's net metered, you're entitled to use that power back. And you will also be paid your renewable energy credits on the entire amount of power that your system generates.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Good stuff.
So I'm going to get solar power again.
Yeah, I know you are.
No, but I mean, it makes perfect sense. I mean, it's just it makes totally sense.
Yeah.
My bill's over $250 a month.
That's a lot of money. Yeah. That's a lot of money.
And it's going to jump and go back up and go. It's going to be nuts. And I'm not even to the summer yet. So, hello.
Yeah. And not that we want Jimmy to do this, but are there now some DIY panels here where homeowners are putting them on themselves, or?
Well, yeah. So DIY has been a thing for a long time. I mean, if you have the knowledge, I mean, you guys are builders, so it's not that difficult, but, and you have an electrician, I think on the electrical side is where you're going to get hit with a lot of cost, because
Sure.
routing all that stuff and tying it in and meter upgrades and electrical panel
Mhm.
upgrades and all that stuff. I can't speak. I'm really not very experienced on the DIY situation, but I've peeked at it a little bit. I mean, you can buy panels and pay someone to install them. I just don't know, how everything plays out over time. I don't know how the warranties would work. I don't know.
That was my question. Yeah, the
There's
warranty.
a lot that I
Yeah.
really don't know about DIY, but there's all kinds of videos out there. I mean, for younger folks who don't care, and you have this, you have the skill set and you have the equipment, you can put panels on, and
Mm-hmm.
you definitely will need a professional design. And then you can go ahead and lay out that stuff. But yeah, I'm really not very knowledgeable on the DIY situation as far as from a customer standpoint, long
Gotcha.
term, customer satisfaction and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Just call Nigel.
Call Nigel.
Just call Nigel.
Have the
It's so
crew
much
come
easier.
in.
Right.
Have the crew come in. I'm making lemonade, guys. Wow.
Wow. So I think we learned a lot.
I learned very much.
Yep. So solar has come a long way in the past few years. It's very
Yeah.
different.
Yeah. I think the incentive, the
Yeah.
rebates,
Yeah.
everything else is there. Now, we mentioned something before,
Well,
Nigel, that in
Yeah.
California, right?
Mhm.
It's mandatory now that you have to have some kind of alternative energy source if you're building a new house. You have to
Yeah,
have something.
that's
Is that what you
since
said?
what is it, 2000 or 2001? I want to say it's 2000. It might be 2001.
Oh, really?
I don't really sell in California, but yeah, that's an absolute law. You can't build a new house in the state of California. I think they're saying even if you're doing a home improvement or expansions or anything like that, you've got to have some renewable energy stuff going on there. But what I should mention though is the cost of solar is going up, and it's going
Sure.
up. And I said this years ago. I mean, you are looking at it's what are you comparing it to the utility companies, right? So
Yeah.
obviously they're not going to stay. They're not going to stay where they were 4 years ago and watch, energy costs just blow up. So it's not just that, but also the fact that there are supply chain issues, and I think your word is tariffs on the panels, trying to encourage more local manufacturing. And of course, we know those are going to be costing a pretty penny. China has been trying to do some little roundabout stuff to ship their stuff to other countries that are not under the tariffs and have them assemble them and then ship them to the U.S. So they're clamping down on all that stuff. And with that, we're looking at a significant increase, I think, over the next few months on the cost of solar. So if there's anyone who was thinking about it seriously, then I would say now is the time to really kind of step on the gas and try to get at least a quote locked in.
Right. Now how far out are you on getting panels right now? Is it, months or?
So luckily for us, we're pretty good. The guys I work with, the suppliers I work with, they're pretty well stocked.
Nice.
One is able to sell cheaper than the other because he had stocked up with a lower cost panel, the same manufacturer, but I think they're 360s. So I'm able to go a little lower with those guys. But for the most part, everyone I've spoken to more recently, they're now upgrading to the 400 watts. And once you're in there, now we're looking at roughly, I think I've heard of 2 increases just within 30 days. That's added $200 per kilowatt.
Wow.
$200 per kilowatt to a solar system. So that means if you have a 10 kilowatt system, your cost went up $2,000 over the past 30 days.
Wow. Yeah. Well, yeah, it's I'm giving out window estimates that are $30,000 for people, and I'm like, don't wait on it. It's gonna keep going up. So I think that's just it is what it is. It's everywhere. So I'm not surprised it's in the solar area as well. Yeah.
If you get a lot of sun, man, it's worthwhile at least getting an assessment done.
Right.
And I think the best way to do that is to actually call and speak to someone. Most of these companies have if you look online, I'd say maybe a good 90% or more. What you're actually any of these sites that you're actually connecting on, they're essentially what you call lead generation sites. So they're prompting you to enter in your phone number and your email and all these different things. As soon as you hang up the phone, you got 100 phone calls coming at you.
Right. Yeah,
so to avoid that, you want to try to speak with someone directly and have them provide information. Hopefully, they could send someone out to meet with you and do an assessment. That is, I think, the safest way to go. Other than that, you're likely going to end up in a lead list that's shared with every single solar selling guy out there, and you
don't want that.
You're just going to have a ton of emails and phone calls coming at you.
Right.
All right.
I'm good. How about you?
Yeah.
I got too much information in my head now.
No, but it's all good. I think
it's all good.
Out of this whole thing,
it's a lot, man.
I think
it is. It is.
As a consumer, you need to do your homework.
Yep.
And I would get, more than one opinion as far as a solar company comes out, see what they say. So Nigel, I think you should have your own TikTok show, dude. I think you're
absolutely.
I think you're phenomenal. You're a great person, and you're phenomenal, and you're so informative.
Yep.
And you steer people in the right direction, because I've turned customers on to you, and they're like, wow, they believe what he has to say, and I do too. Is there you want to give out your email or stuff like that? People could reach out to you if they have any questions and stuff like that.
Sure. It's Nigel, Nigel, at One Source Energy, and there's one E between source and energy. So that's SOURCENERGY.com. So Nigel at OneSourceEnergy.com. One E between source and energy.
Yeah,
got it.
And what's good about Nigel? He takes your call, and I mean, and he's willing to discuss. And I think that's really good. You're a great teacher, my friend.
Yes.
You're great and informative. And I'm so glad that I know you, and I'm so glad you were on the show today.
Yes, appreciate you coming on. Really.
It's been an honor.
Happy to help, guys. Anytime.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
All right, Jimmy.
Yeah, buddy.
We did another one.
We
made it through.
Out of the park.
Out of the park.
Yeah.
Nice.
Thanks,
all right,
buddy.
Nigel, thanks again. Really appreciate it. Everybody, join us next week for another great episode of Behind the Studs.
Yep.
Sure.
See ya.
Bye now. Bye.
Take care, guys.